And let's begin by getting you all the exclusive inside information that India Today has picked up on the questioning of Rahul Gandhi. He's been grilled for 3 days, and according to sources, Rahul has told the Enforcement Directorate that late Motilal Vora was the authorized signatory for all financial transactions between AJL and Young Indian. Congress leaders Pawan Bansal and Mallikarjun Kharge, in their statements to the Enforcement Directorate, reportedly had also said that the decision of the deal wasn't taken by a single person and that Vora was essentially responsible for all financial transactions. Remember that Motilal Vora had a 12% stake in Young Indian. Congress, meanwhile, has locked horns with the Delhi cops. They've lodged a complaint against the Delhi police and has demanded action against those who entered the party headquarters in Delhi. Lok Sabha MPs of the party will shortly hold a meeting at the party office in Parliament House. According to sources, the MPs will discuss the alleged manhandling of fellow MPs by the Delhi police, and a delegation led by Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary will meet with the Speaker anytime now. So this is the big disclosure and revelation that India Today has accessed. Rahul Gandhi, while being questioned by the Enforcement Directorate, has said that it was Motilal Vora, the late leader, who was in charge of all financial transactions between AJL and Young Indian, essentially that he was the authorized signatory. Things clearly don't add up on that front, because if you look at Young Indian and the breakdown of stakes, Mr. Motilal Vora had a 12% stake, Rahul Gandhi has 38%, Sonia Gandhi has 38%. So together the Gandhis themselves hold 76% of the stake in Young Indian. But clearly at this point, the Congress's line of defense is to pin the blame on the late leader, to blame Motilal Vora, which is the information we picked up because Mallikarjun Kharge, Pawan Bansal, when they too were questioned by the Congress, had made similar statements reported. Amit Malviya of the BJP is joining us on this broadcast. Mr. Malviya, what do you make of this information that India Today has received? Rahul Gandhi, when asked about these financial transactions between AJL and Young Indian, said that the authorized signatory was Motilal Vora, who had a 12% stake, versus him, who has a 38% stake.
This is the first step towards admission of guilt and wrongdoing. The Gandhis, both Rahul and Sonia, have the highest shareholding in the company, and therefore they cannot exclude themselves from the decision-making process. And anyway, there are very few shareholders, and everything that happened between HAL and Young India was with the consent of these shareholders. Slowly you will find that the Congress will have no option but to admit that the Gandhis indulged in massive corruption. They have siphoned off the money which was meant to be donation to the party, and have used it to appropriate thousands of crores of assets in AJL.
Mr. Malviya, I earlier had a conversation with Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary also about this line of defense of the Congress, essentially, to say that late Mr. Motilal Vora was the one who could, in fact, who authorized all these financial transactions. He's saying that this is a planted story, an effort by the central agencies on behalf of the BJP to kind of create a rift within the Congress.
Look, let's keep the BJP and the central agencies aside for a minute. I asked the Congress leaders, why haven't the Gandhis got any relief from any of the courts? From the trial court to the High Court to the Supreme Court, they have all withheld the investigation. They have not restrained the IT department from serving notices. They have not restrained the ED from attaching properties. They have not stopped the CBI from the investigation. So if the Congress leaders, and a lot of them happen to be lawyers, have such strong arguments, why have they not been able to defend the Gandhis in the court? Because the truth is that this is a massive corruption. It is using public funds for gaining private property in the name of Gandhis, Sonia and Rahul Gandhi in this case, and this will have to be held to account, and the Gandhis will be answerable.
Okay, Amit Malviya, thank you for joining us here on India Today with your view on this big news break of Rahul Gandhi the details with us here on India Today of exactly what Rahul Gandhi told the Enforcement Directorate. The BJP's contention is this. They're saying that if all of these allegations are bogus, how is it that the courts have found merit in these allegations, in these charges, and haven't provided any relief to the Gandhis as of now? Let me take this across to Munish Pandey. He's joining us live with all the details of what's been the takeaway so far of Rahul Gandhi's questioning. It's clear, Munish, that it wasn't just Rahul. Earlier, when the likes of Mallikarjun Kharge, Pawan Bansal were also summoned by the Enforcement Directorate in this case, they said exactly this, that Motilal Vora was the authorized signatory. He took care of all financial transactions between AJL and Young Indian.
Absolutely, Akshita. And remember, in this case, the main allegation is the financial transactions between AJL, between Young India Private Limited, and the loan given by the Congress party. That is the main allegation which the Enforcement Directorate is probing, whether there was any money laundering or not. Earlier, there were 5 senior functionaries who were the office bearers of AJL and Young India Private Limited. They were questioned by the Enforcement Directorate. Mallikarjun Kharge, Pawan Bansal and others of the Congress party, they appeared before the ED and they told the officials, the investigators, that in all these cases, Motilal Vora was the authorized signatory, which means that for all the financial transactions, he was the one who signed the paper, so no other person can be blamed if there is any irregularity. First of all, it is not established whether there was any irregularity or not. As of now, it is allegation. Apart from that, when Rahul Gandhi appeared before the Enforcement Directorate in last 3 days, Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, he has been questioned for almost 30 hours. And in 30 hours, what ED wanted to know that he has any details about the financial transactions between AJL and Young India Private Limited, and also the investment in Young India Private Limited by a alleged Kolkata-based cell company. Now, what he told the Enforcement Directorate officials, and this is according to sources, that Motilal Vora was the authorized signatory for any financial transactions or any financial related dealing in these companies. So he has no idea what has happened and he cannot provide any detail because Motilal Vora is no more. So end of the day, what Rahul Gandhi has conveyed to the Enforcement Directorate is that Motilal Vora was responsible for all the financial transactions and no other person from the Congress party can provide any detail because Motilal Vora is no more.
Okay, Munish, thank you for getting us all of those details.